So, hello everyone. I want to start by thanking everyone for their patience as we have tried to navigate these times unlike any other and continue to work for ways to safely get players back on the field. Gladly, with the metrics throughout the state, the continued expansion on vaccination distribution and public health safety measures, we are able to return to the field for competitive matches. We worked through many options when determining how best to proceed with the suspended cup competitions, and no matter which direction we went, we knew there would be teams unfortunately dissatisfied with our decision, and additionally unfortunate that there would be teams that no longer would be able to participate due to circumstances outside of soccer, including conflicts with other sports, spring break, and continued health concern. Another barrier in our way is the weather in Illinois, which limits the realistic opportunities to get games in, along with an overwhelming demand for indoor and turf field space for not only soccer, but other sports, which is why we are scheduled to resume in late March, early April. I will ask this: if you do have a complaint about the decision or the format, I ask that you send those directly to me via email or a phone call. I am at the IHSA office all day today until 3. And although you may not agree, I can give you our rationale behind these decisions. During this presentation, we ask that questions focus solely about the rescheduled event. Questions should be entered into the chat. Katie is monitoring the chat during the presentation, and you can either enter it into the general chat part or directly to Katie, and she will read relevant questions submitted at the end of the presentation. If your question is not answered, please reach out to myself or Bill or both following the presentation, and team or club specific questions sent to Katie will be passed on to us so that we can answer those to you directly. The purpose of this presentation is to give all of you as much detail as possible so you can properly make your decision as to whether or not you will continue to participate in the rescheduled cup events. For the rescheduled fall 2020 cups, we are moving forward with the following changes. The event will be changed to a single elimination tournament. Based on the time we have, we can no longer allow teams that lose a state cup game to continue on to the Presidents Cup unless it is one of the very few playing games that may be played. This is important for you to note so that when you re-register, you register for the competition you truly want to compete in. With the change in format, there will obviously be a fee change. Teams will be refunded portions of the registration fee based on how many games you play. If you're eliminated after one game, your total fee will be $375 and you will be refunded $550. If you play 2 games, the fee will be $650 with $275 refunded. If you play 3 games, there will be no refund, as that would be the same fee paid for the 3-game group play portion formatted event. Teams that do not play 3 games will be refunded the appropriate amount via check sent to the club in mid-April. If teams move games away from Rockford, you will be refunded $50 per game. So that refund amount could be more if you do not play in Rockford. So for the new single elimination event, here are the new play-by dates. We will further in the presentation, we will break down dates by specific age groups. If you are drawn into a play-in game, that match must be played no later than March 21st. This should be played as a home team host game, but if neither team has access to a field at this time, we can help coordinate field usage with the Rockford Park District. Please know that field availability is at a premium right now, so those games will be scheduled based on their availability. Round of 16 games will be played March 26th through 28th, and we do intend to play those matches on the outdoor turf fields in Rockford. April 2nd through 3rd is when the quarterfinals will be played and scheduled in Rockford. So I know we've had this question already. Yes, teams will be able to play these matches earlier than these dates. Our expectation is to have the brackets posted by February 12th, which should give teams more than a month prior to the scheduled dates in Rockford to negotiate and change dates. When we get to the semis and finals, teams will have a couple of options. Obviously, with the IHSA season set to begin mid-April, teams that advance to the semis can mutually agree and do a home team host prior to losing their players to the high school season, or we will bring the teams back after June 4th when players are eligible to play simultaneously for their club and their high school. Right now, we have developed our schedules based on the previous fall registration, which had at least 16 teams in all age groups. If we have age groups when the re-registration closes that are less than 16 teams, and we can play through the semis or finals on the proposed weekends, we will. So, for example, if the 18U Girls State Cup goes from the currently registered 18 teams down to 10 or less, we should be able to play through the finals in the proposed format on the weekend's dates in Rockford. For all games, teams can agree to play at another location, and we do encourage teams to play earlier. Again, if teams are able to get games done early and we are down to, say, the semifinals by late March, we can then move forward with those games in Rockford instead of earlier round games. As mentioned before, Rockford does have some weeknight availability. So if you're interested in playing during the week, we can help facilitate those matches with the Rockford Park District. One of the biggest impacts on the reschedule event was the recent announcement that IHSA had moved their start date for their girls season up earlier than the previously posted one. There was, and some of you may still have some uncertainty about the eligibility requirements for girls, because as opposed to boys that have no restrictions on simultaneous play, girls do. Here is the direct info we received from the IHSA concerning when players can play for both their school and club simultaneously. This info was also sent to you in a previous email. We felt by choosing this format and eliminating as many teams as possible in the single elimination prior to the IHSA season, it would allow teams and players, whether they were eliminated or will continue to play in June, the most opportunity to plan accordingly. We also know that there are many of you that are also trying to fit in delayed Midwest Conference game into this window. I had a discussion with Mark Franklin, Midwest Conference Commissioner, and due to the impact of the pandemic, for only those 15U through 19U girls teams that played in the Midwest Conference this fall, Rule 11.5 of the Midwest Conference will be waived, and teams will retain their spots and or promotions for the fall 2021 season, even if they do not play in the rescheduled cup events. So if for your membership and team goals, completing your Midwest Conference schedule is a priority, you can focus on that instead of the cup competitions and remain eligible for next season's Midwest Conference. One caveat to that, though, is for any Club B Club or Premier One teams that may be in a position to earn a wild card slot at the U.S. Youth Soccer Midwest Regional Championships, you must compete in the State Cup in order to remain eligible for that wild card. For those teams that will be competing in State Cup, a couple of points I want to make sure you are aware of. Regionals are set for June 26th. Teams that play in the State Cup are expected to go on to the regionals should they win the state event. So if you know that your team will not be able to compete in that regional event, please do not register for the new competition. We understand this would be amongst the conversations you should have with your team. I know it's some time away and things could continue to change, but if you know now that that's not something your team will be able to do, take that into consideration whether you decide to compete or not. Another important thing is that U.S. Youth Soccer has made some changes to the regional and national roster player eligibility. Previously, you could only use players that were rostered to your club prior to the State Cup. They have changed that for the regionals and nationals. So for now, should you earn an advancement into regionals, you can add free agent players, we'll call them, that are signed to your club after the conclusion of the Illinois State Cup. That can be used at regionals as long as they were not registered to another U.S. Youth Soccer member club. So a free agent player would be someone from a club or a team that plays in an organization other than U.S. Youth Soccer. And another consideration would be, say you have a player that's injured right now that you know will not be able to compete for your team in the rescheduled event. That includes into the June event. You do not have to roster them right now. You could free up a roster space, and then come late June, you can sign them and use them at regionals. But the continuity of roster for this year remains at 9 players. So should you advance to regionals, you must have 9 players that are the same from your State Cup roster to your regional roster. Now I'm going to go into each State Cup age group to give you a little bit more detail on each bracket. Another change brought on by the pandemic and the change to the IHSA season is we now have to start the 19U, 20U girls event now as opposed to Memorial Day weekend as previously planned. We feel this age group will be greatly impacted by seniors playing their final year of high school and want to give them the opportunity to both represent their school and play in what could be their final State Cup. Registration for the 19/20U State Cup is now open and must be completed by February 8th. The other major change for this age group is that U.S. Youth Soccer has changed it to allow 2001 players to be able to be played because of them missing what would have been their final club year last year. The change in that regional rostering may prove to be very important for this age group, so keep that in mind should you have college players that you want to bring back should you advance to regionals. If you think you will have those college players back should we have to resume in June, they must be on your 22-player State Cup roster prior to your first match. And some of these specifics we will go over in another presentation the week of February 15th once we have the new brackets and all of the total number of teams registered. For the 20U age group, the planned play dates are March 26th through 28th in Rockford for what would be the round of 16, April 2nd and 3rd for the quarterfinals, and then we would look to bring teams back after June 4th for the semis and finals. Again, if we see a registration total less than 16 teams, we will play as deep into the competition as possible if we can avoid having to bring teams back in June. So if we only have 8 teams that register for this age group, we would start the quarterfinals that weekend in March and get all the way through the finals this winter. For the 16U through 18U age group, all teams that were registered for the fall will need to re-register for this event by February 8th. That link was included in the email that was sent to you the other day, and it is also now posted on our website. The primary reason we're having you re-register is we haven't, really comes down to payments. We didn't charge any credit cards for the fall event previously. So if there's new credit card information or updated info, you would enter that new information into the re-registration. So if you wish to continue into this rescheduled event, you must complete that re-registration by February 8th. The planned dates are the same as for the 19U age group for State Cup. You can see them there. And again, if we see registration totals less than 16, we will play as deep into the competition as possible. But we will put priority on the oldest age groups and the Presidents Cup due to their regional events starting sooner. But we will work to get as many of these games in as possible based on the number of teams that re-register. Unfortunately, the 15U age group is going to be the one most impacted. Based on the expected numbers, there isn't enough time or fields to run the 15U age group like the other suspended fall ages. Because this age group has both 8th graders and freshmen in high school, we felt that the older age group should get the priority. We are going to delay the start until IHSA players can return to their club, as to try and limit the impact on those clubs that will have players playing for their schools. Here you will see the proposed 15U State Cup schedule for spring. It will be a single elimination event that will be played over a short time frame due to the need to qualify a team for regionals. But these dates are subject to change. At this time, 15U teams do not need to do nothing, and they will be followed up with it in April to discuss how they will re-register for the rescheduled event. With all that being said, again, should the registration totals for the older ages allow for us to include the 15U age division this winter, we will. We will have a better idea of this after the February 8th re-registration deadline, and will promptly follow up with this age group with potential opportunities. Now for the Presidents Cup. The Presidents Cup is going to be even tougher than the State Cup because the regional event starts on June 17th with teams expected in Cincinnati by June 16th. The main issue for this is that the IHSA season is scheduled to run through June 19th, so please keep that in mind as you make your decision. Teams that play in the state event are expected to play in the regional event, and there is a quick turnaround between June 4th, when players are eligible to return, and June 16th. Similar to the National Championship Series, U.S. Youth Soccer has made some rule changes for rostering as well for the Presidents Cup, which could be helpful for many teams. For teams that advance to the regional and national Presidents Cup, you can now use up to 5 what they are calling additionally rostered players, which means guest players from another club. The main caveat with this is that players must be registered to IHSA U.S. Youth Soccer, must be registered to Illinois Youth Soccer, U.S. Youth Soccer prior to your team's first cup match. And then there are some additional restrictions similar to anything with the Presidents Cup. And again, we'll go over more specifics of this in the next presentation following the registration. But for those of you that will compete in Presidents Cup, there will be, should you advance to regionals and you do have player conflicts, especially due to the IHSA season, you would be able to add some additional players from an outside club. Probably the most complex age group for this season, just in general, will be the 18U and 19U Presidents Cup. That is simply because instead of adding a whole separate 19U age group for the regional and national Presidents Cup, U.S. Youth Soccer has combined the 18U, 19U age group into one at regionals and nationals. As we had previously planned and discussed for the fall, our intention is to run a separate 18U and 19U age group for the Presidents Cup and crown a state champion in each. Then in June, the 18U and 19U champion will play each other for the regional spot unless Illinois is awarded the wild card in that age group, which I'm really hoping we do get. If we are awarded that wild card spot, then both the 18U and 19U champion will advance to regionals. Because of this additional wrinkle for this age group, we have planned for the 18U and 19U Presidents Cup to be completed all the way through the semifinals this winter. And you can see the date of play listed there. So March 27th, all teams will have their round of 16 games. March 28th will be the quarterfinals, and then we'll bring them back either April 2nd or 3rd to compete semifinals. Then for the finals, if teams can come to an agreement prior to losing their IHSA players, they can complete those finals before that, or we will bring the finals back on June 6th in Rockford. And should we need that 18U, 19U final, that will be played by June 10th, most likely as a home team host. As I mentioned, if Illinois gets the wild card, then we won't worry about that U18 through U19 final, and both teams will go. And if we see the registration totals for the 18U and 19U age group to be lower than they were in the fall, and we can combine these age groups into one for the winter, we will do that to make it a little bit of a cleaner event. So for those 18U and 19U teams playing Presidents Cup, I do want to emphasize that unless Illinois is awarded the wild card in the 19U wild card spot at the Midwest Presidents Cup, the 18U Presidents Cup champion will play the 19U Illinois Presidents Cup champion in June to determine who advances to the Midwest Presidents Cup. For the 16U and 17U Presidents Cup, pretty straightforward as with the other age groups. Everyone that wants to play will need to re-register by February 8th. Same dates as the other state cup ages. We will be down to the final four by April 3rd for each of these teams. If teams can get their semis in before losing their players to high school, great. If not, we will play the semis and finals in the short window of June 4th through 10th to qualify teams for regionals. I do want to say that if we do see field times open based on registration, our priority will go to the Presidents Cup, as I mentioned earlier, strictly because of their small window between June 4th and Presidents Cup regionals starting June 17th. Like the 15U Girls State Cup, unfortunately, due to the field availability and time, we have to also move the 15U Girls Presidents Cup to spring, and it will be a very compact single elimination event. And you can see the tentative dates there. At this time, 15U teams need to do nothing, and they will be followed up with in April to discuss how they will register. Again, should the registration totals for the older age groups allow for us to include the 15U division this winter, we will, and we should have a better idea of that by February 9th. So what happens next? So if your team intends to play in the rescheduled event, for all teams excluding the 15U age group, you must do the following. If you are not yet registered and carded through an IHSA member competitive league, you must have that done before your first match, or you are ineligible for either of the cup competitions. So if your team didn't register this fall, you want to play in the cups, you need to contact your member league and get that registration complete. You then need to complete the new registration no later than February 8th. Again, that was included in the email that was sent out, and it can be found on our website now. At the registration, you will be required to enter a credit card, but it is not charged once you complete that registration. If you wish to pay by check, you can send those in, and those need to be received by February 10th. If you submitted a check in the fall and that check is still valid and doesn't have a timeline on it that says valid only for a certain amount of time, and you want us to cash that check for your payment for the rescheduled event, simply email me and let me know, and we'll take care of that. We will have the brackets released on February 12th, and once those brackets are released, teams can begin rescheduling and play as soon as possible. The main thing is we will need 48 hours for referee assignments. So the sooner you make those changes and let us know, the better. And then following the release of the brackets on the week of February 15th, the team will get additional information, including procedures, contacts, etc., like you get for every cup cycle. That will most likely just be a pre-recorded video that you can watch at your leisure. Before we get into questions here, Flo from the IWSL did want to address all of you to discuss opportunities for high school age teams this spring with the within the IWSL. So Flo, are you on? All right. It doesn't seem as if Flo's on. Flo, if you are on and you're on mute, feel free to jump in whenever. But I'm sure we can get that information to share with all of you as well, or contact the IWSL directly, as I know they're looking to provide those teams that are interested in playing this spring or into the summer with that. So before we get into the submitted questions, I do have some that I thought of that would probably come up and wanted to make sure we had answers for you. So what if we get rolled back again or weather disrupts the competition through April? If there is a statewide rollback before mid-March or we are unable to complete these games, ultimately we'll have to go back to the drawing board, look at all those options we considered previously, and figure out what is the best competition or opportunity for teams. Like everything, we've all had to learn to be flexible, and hopefully the trends that we're seeing right now continue, and we'll be able to at least get this portion in prior to the IHSA season. What if we get through the winter and come June, we are rolled back or in another lockdown? Assuming that that is an Illinois only issue and that the regional events are still on as planned, we would look at options to qualify teams from those that advance to the semifinals. If there is no opportunity to play come June based on any statewide restrictions, then we would most likely qualify the regional team based on the cup tiebreakers, points, goals, goal differential, etc. What if I register, then have a COVID outbreak in my team? Obviously, there's a variety of factors that could impact teams' ability to play with this rescheduled event, and safety is our number one priority. Unfortunately, but if we do have a team that has to drop out because of COVID, they will be removed from the event unless we can safely coordinate a way for them to continue in the event at a later date. But if we're getting down to an event and you unfortunately have a COVID issue and it's going to delay us from meeting our dates we're trying to do. We would have to remove the team, but we will certainly take each instance individually with the ultimate focus on player safety. What if I register my team and then due to spring break plans, I cannot field a roster? What happens? We want teams to have realistic discussions with their players and families before completing the registration by February 8th. Once the brackets are released, teams are expected to participate in the event through their elimination. That being said, this year more than ever, we understand unforeseen circumstances and that people are trying to fit in as much as possible. And that if teams that have to drop will be removed from the event. But if we do release the brackets, there will be a minimal administrative fee that will be kept from your registration total. What if I need to move a game to another date? So obviously, as I said earlier, we have these dates set in Rockford, but we're going to be as flexible as we can and allow teams to adjust should they mutually be able to agree. And throughout the pandemic, everyone has talked about the focus and the need to get players back on the field safely. So based on everything we have gone through this year in Illinois, the expectation is for coaches and teams to show professional respect and courtesy to each other and work to allow the players the opportunity to play the game within reason. Teams that cannot agree will play on dates assigned by the IHSA. And I think the big thing there is within reason. If a team's saying they can't play because they have an indoor game or something like that, we're going to not show as much compassion or consideration for adjusting that. So hopefully, coach, you all within your professional ranks can show that respect for each other to get games in if there are things that teams need to adjust. If not, IHSA will assign, and that decision will be done on our own. So, what COVID protocols will be in place? Obviously, our number one focus, more than qualifying teams for regionals, is to make sure that every player that sets foot on a field during this is as safe as they possibly can be. At this time, we can't say this, and this will be the protocols. With the state, the metrics continue to dictate what is allowable, and those can quickly change, as we have all seen. Following the release of the brackets on February 12th, we will obviously be working with the IDPH and also the Rockford Park District to ensure that all required safety measures are met for any game that's played. And we will share those initial COVID protocols with all of the teams prior to the first games. But right now, I don't want to say we're going to do this, or this, because this state could require something different. And anything that we do post may have to be changed again. So, all right, Katie, if you want to, if you have some submitted questions to share, we'll take those now.
Yeah, sure. We just have a couple. So first, I think this is in regards to you mentioning the weeknight availability in Rockford. Will there be a cost for using those Rockford fields?
Right now we have those, assuming that you are talking about a round of 16 game that we have scheduled in Rockford. We've already, there's already a field fee built into your cost. So if you're moving one of the games from March 26th to, let's say, February 27th, you've already paid that fee, so there wouldn't be anything in addition.
Then next, for those 15 U teams, is registration still done by February 8th?
Not at this time. The re-registration should only be for the 16U and older teams. Then once we see what those total registrations are, we'll know better if we can fit 15U teams in. And if that's the case, those age groups will be reached out to directly and told their process. But at this time, no, they should not re-register.
All right, and then one last one. This is coming off about your question about the weather and things being pushed back. It says who is going to make that call, IHSA or the clubs that are playing in those games?
Well, anything that's held in Rockford where we're on site, we'll obviously be the ones dictating that. And then for if someone moves a game to another location and they're snowed out, they'll have, we'll have to get those games in before the next round. So those are all things that need to be put into consideration when rescheduling.
And that's all the questions we got.
All right, we'll give everybody another minute here. If you got any more that you want to send in. As I said, if you have anything else that you want to discuss, I am at the IHSA office today till about 3 o'clock. Once this presentation is ready to post, it'll be up on our website, and the re-registration is as well. And I will send a follow-up email to all of you just with all this information as well. So again, thanks for your time, and just want to reiterate that should you wish to continue, make sure you get those registrations done by February 8th, so Monday. No more questions, Katie? We good?
Nope, that is all.
All right, everyone have a good afternoon.